Coming off of their first headline tour, this album is full of amazing metalcore riffs and even harsher vocals from Currents than before ever on their previous records. The mix of cleans in the chorus complement the packed screams in an amazing way, and in the same way that I love Counterpart's most recent record, it's a metalcore album full of great instrumentation, amazing breakdowns, and the songwriting is just as appealing, with The Desolate Hope being a driving point on this album. Even the more melodic material like Unfamiliar is one of the songs I feel like masters this mix of vocals the best on this project. A pretty interesting hardcore and surf rock mix. It's almost like a summer punk album, but this album left a lot more to be desired in the structure of the album itself. It's basically Ed Sheeran's Equals album, but a little bit more folk inspired. But it's still a typical Ed Sheeran album full of really overproduced instrumentals, with the ever-wasted potential of Ed Sheeran just fading with every math equation he runs out of for his albums. I feel like this album could have been a lot better if there was a little bit more time put into the instrumental part of it, as at times I just felt as if they were not as appealing as a lot of Grandson's instrumentals were on his previous project, Death of an Optimist. And the songwriting is not too bad on a few of these tracks as well, such as on Heather or Something to Hide, but the instrumentals seem very bland at times with the very low energy, alternative rap chords mixed in. The more down-tempo piano tracks I found a lot more appealing in the grand scheme of the album. I just felt was lacking in a lot of areas. Definitely not my favorite Acacia Strain album. Coinciding with their other doom metal album release, I was just not really a fan of how short this album was, and it just seemed like it had a lot less thought into it than Slow Decay's concept and instrumentals, which I didn't give enough credit for back then, but as the albums were split in two, you can obviously see that these were supposed to be put together, and I listened to both of them and I'm not a fan of either. This is probably one of Amity's heaviest albums in about 10 years, and I love a lot of their discography, but this album is slowly creeping in as a personal favorite. Joel's vocals are just as sharp and ear-blasting as ever, and Aaron's cleans with their signature melodic riffs and even heavier breakdowns just gives me another reason to love Amity Affliction even more. Show Me Your God, It's Hell Down Here, Death in the Setting Sun with Andrew Neufeld of Comeback Kid, I See Dead People, When It Rains It Pours with Landon Tours of The Plot and You, God Voice, Not Without My Ghost with Femme. All of these songs, check them out right fucking now. I can finally talk about Hot Mulligan on this channel. Hot Mulligan's post-emo sound I just fell in love with after seeing them at Summerfest last year. But this album is just full of great and catchy emo / pop punk, whatever you want to call it. And it's an album for the summer for sure. Lots of feel-good riffs throughout. And I just love the singing, even though I know how painful it can sound at times for a lot of people. But I feel like the over-pronunciation of the vocals just gives the songs more character. Also, I'll let you guys pause and just look at these song titles, and all of them will basically have their own story surrounding it, and the song will just really stick with you, even though a song called Cock Party, it might be one of the saddest songs I've heard all year, and that's not even a joke. It's an album. Probably one of the best up-and-coming deathcore bands in the scene at the moment. We just recently saw Left to Suffer open for Chelsea Grin, and if you guys want to see that footage, that's up on the channel, and they had that crowd off their feet as well. Taylor's vocals are some of the most impressive I've heard in a while. Look at Artificial Anatomy, Recluse, Primitive Urge, and Disappoint Me for some examples of that. Great opening for a debut album from them. This album has actually grown on me, giving it time to breathe, but this album is almost a mix of their 2017 project, and mix in a lot more electronic elements with the synthesizers, and not to mention the normal instrumentals are just as good, as Veil of Maya has always been one of my favorite metalcore bands in terms of instrumentation, and vocals as well by Lucas Magar. It reminds me a lot of the Space EP that Devil Wears Prada put out a couple years ago, and the album cover does match the sound of the album. It's almost a futuristic, dystopian, progressive metalcore album. They all combine into probably top 3 in their discography in terms of ambition. I love Sleep Token. They are the only band that I had missed at Blue Ridge last year, and the fact of seeing their growth since September of 2022 to now is just immaculate. And despite a very not popular review of this album by the Melon Man himself, this album is a contender for top 10 of the year for me. This is an odd comparison, but I love Sleep Token in the same way that I love Hollywood Undead's earlier music, as they were very diverse and could make a lot of different genre mixes and collide these ideas in a great way. I love this album because of Chokehold's hornycore aesthetic, vocals and guitars, the summoning in general, Granite's very slow pacing, Vor being a fucking banger, Do You Wish That You Loved Me, which I know people don't really like, but it's just a perfect pop song. And from a band that is considered, quote, heavier, I just love that a lot. I can go on and on about this album, but just give it a listen and experience it for yourself. There's a reason why I didn't post any footage of the Used at my recent concert, mainly because I'm not really too much of a fan, and even after listening to this project, I'm still not a fan. I think that it's just not as attractive to a modern standpoint. It just sounds very outdated, nothing really new or any good songs that really get my attention. If you married, you better get it. I'm a terrorist, I'm from the city. I got head in the Honda Civic. Features are probably the best thing on this album. I found this band after seeing them open for Magnolia Park. That footage is also on the channel if you want to check that out. And I loved their sound from the beginning, as all of these songs were no skips. The instrumentals are gentle and energetic, but the vocals are very soothing and well performed, especially for a three-piece pop rock band. I fell in love with Checking In even before the song was released, as you can see in my video of their performance alongside these other artists. Over It, High, The Credits, Put You Through Me, Wide Eyes, Seeing Red, Checking In, Heading to the Clouds, and the title track, just some of my personal favorites on this album. The songwriting is relatable and comfortable, almost like a friend confiding in you about their mental health, and you both are just trauma bonding together. Meanwhile, the summer set is playing in the background. I know that scenario was very specific, but listen to this album and tell me if you agree. Definitely not my favorite Heart Attack Man project, and if I'm being honest, probably my least favorite in their discography. I just thought that the Thoughts and Prayers EP and Fake Blood were just head and shoulders better than Freak of Nature. The sound really diminishes, and it seems like there was a little more needed in the time for the production of the album as opposed to the marketing for this album. And the structure of the songs as well might have needed a little tune-up as well. As a little bit of time, maybe this album might grow on me. So that was it. That was for May. I know it's late, but as you can see, we finally got the studio set up. I got the album ceiling getting ready for that, by the way. So also, if you guys like the new studio, let me know, and I will talk to you all later.